Hey, what's up? I'm Marty Yang, creator of the Lucky Brain podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoy. All right, so let's start. Ken, thank you so much for doing this. You are a retired police officer, correct? Formerly of the LAPD.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it is a very tough time right now, Ken, to be a police officer. I wanted to jump into the most recent case of Jacob Blake. Have you seen the video and things like this?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to, get your perspective on kind of like what is going through the police officer in your opinion. What do you think is going on through his mind, as the whole situation is unfolding?
Well, generally speaking, before all this, all the rioting and the George Floyd and all that was happening, police officers have been on edge for, I would say, probably since maybe 2010, something like that. Things started ramping up, where they would call it, aggression towards police officers. There is a whole mindset about challenging cops and all this type of thing. And police officers have always been second guessed as far as what their tactics were and should you have done this and that. So move forward to 2020, and now police officers are just on edge, and
Right.
They're just, do I even pull my gun out? Do I touch the person? There's cameras all around. Are they going to misconstrue what I'm doing? And so police officers are pretty nervous. So the mindset is that I think police officers are scared to even in situations where it's totally legit, justifiable. I think they're hesitating, and that can cause injury or death to the officers.
So looking at that Jacob Blake situation, in my opinion, when Jacob Blake is kind of going around to his car to get inside the car, that for me, if I was a police officer, just logically thinking, it's like, okay, I'd be thinking, what is this guy going in his car for? Is he going to get a gun? Apparently he had a knife, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I read. Apparently he had a knife. And so there's this whole kind of, like you said, edge of police officers. Like, am I doing the right thing? Here's a question. What type of training did you guys have when it comes to de-escalation or escalated situations like that? How much time was spent, if at all?
Well, back in the 80s, there were kind of rules of the street, if you would. Police officers knew what they could do legally, and suspects or people that were being detained for crimes knew that if they got caught, there were it was kind of like a unspoken rules of the street, where if you were detaining someone, they didn't walk away, and generally speaking,
I see.
There was no, when you're even when you're arresting somebody for a legit crime, there wasn't this, don't touch me.
Yeah.
What is it? And what is it with this walking away when the police are talking to you? If you are, if you're legally detained, like a constitutional detained, you don't have a right to walk away. If you're getting arrested, you do not have a right to resist. So when they're talking to you and I don't know the exact backstory about how they came in contact with him, but my guess is they were there legally.
Yeah, I think it was a domestic issue. Domestic
yeah,
violence.
I hear different things. Like he had a warrant for his arrest for something, and so they were there legally detaining him. And so, does he have a right to leave? No. Does he have a right to go to do whatever he wants? No. Does he have a right to have a weapon? to access a weapon. Why would he do that? Why? And
Yeah.
so it escalates.
Yeah. What type of training did you guys have when it comes to like de-escalating those types of situations?
Well, I can recall specifically there was LAPD back in the 80s and the 90s used what it was like if you can imagine, it was a thermometer. It was a graphic of a thermometer, and it would be, you know, verbal commands, compliance holds, baton, mace. You know, it would go up the chain all the way to lethal force. So you had a framework of what steps you were supposed to take. But what people don't understand is that in police work, you can go from the bottom of the scale, verbal commands, in seconds to the top. It just takes seconds. And people want to judge police officers on their actions for things that take milliseconds to transpire from your eye to your brain to taking action.
Yeah. Yeah. Jocko Willink is a former Navy SEAL commander, and he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. And I think he said something very important. If he said that there should be like a lot of that training, a lot of de-escalation training. Like when he was in his command and he had to be in, you know, overseas, like with all these civilians, I think he was in Afghanistan or something like that. They would do de-escalation training all the time. And in my opinion, I can see, like, I'm a pretty objective person, so I don't lean like, you know, pro cop or pro, like, say, for example, like Black Lives Matter specifically. I'm just trying to look at this as objectively as I can. And it seems to me that there's many types of scenarios where police could have handled the situation better. But like you said, in a millimeter of a second, like how are you supposed to think when it comes to a person like reaching into their car or reaching for something? It's like logically it's my life over yours. And I'm sure that the cop is thinking that way, and I'm sure that the civilian is thinking that way. And so it's a tricky situation right now. But Andrew Yang had something that I want to get your thoughts on. Are you familiar with Andrew Yang, former presidential candidate, Democratic presidential candidate? He was running.
Yeah, Andrew, right?
Yeah, so he was saying that that all police officers should be purple belts in jiu-jitsu. What is your thought? Is that too ridiculous of an idea? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't have a problem with that. Not being a use of force expert, but being someone who was in the field. Right about the time, maybe a few years, maybe 3 to 5 years before I retired, LAPD had gone to a grappling type of use of force training that was Krav Maga.
Krav Maga, okay.
And there's no belts or anything like that, and there's no proficiency. I don't think they grade you on that, but I don't have a problem with that because those types of grappling techniques, they do teach those types of things. Having you said a purple belt can only help, and I don't know what happens if somebody doesn't pass the test or something.
Yeah. So I'm glad to hear you say that you think that's a good idea. I feel like the police officers would be a lot more confident as well in their ability to like handle a person, say for example, like Jacob Blake, without using lethal force. Because when I see Jacob Blake walking around to the car, I believe the police officers tased him, and the taser didn't work. It wasn't like subduing him. And then he reaches into his car and then he gets shot. It's a very, very complicated, situation, because I can see it from the police officer's perspective. It's like, hey man, what the hell are you doing? Like, we're trying to detain you. We got called over here for like legitimate purposes, but you're going to your car. And then on the other hand, I can see it from the civilians, from like even like Jacob Blake's perspective, or like my perspective as a civilian. Like if I was doing that, for one, my thought is like, I'm not gonna fuck with the cops. They have guns. They have a bunch of shit that that could hurt me. And if I'm doing something wrong, it's like I'm like, okay, like I need to just like chill out. I can't speak for Jacob. I can't speak for the police officer who shot the guy, but it's definitely, the coverage seems to be heavily favored from the civilian perspective. And cops, like, what is the morale within the police community when it comes to the environment that we're currently in? How do they feel like about doing their jobs? Because in New York, I think there was a bunch of cops quitting.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I can touch on something that you had just mentioned, with regard to the taser not working and that type of thing, that's very unnerving, because these tools that police officers have, those are the buffer between going hands-on and just the thing ending quietly, you know. And so when a suspect walks away from you, here's what's happening. A few years ago, if somebody pulled away from you when you're trying to take them into custody, or they're walking to somewhere where they there's a reason why officers don't let people out of their cars or back into their cars without having been searched, because we don't know what's in there, right? So when someone walks away from you and they should have never, this is just Monday morning quarterbacking. It doesn't mean anything. But as soon as he started walking away, he should have been taken into custody. And more than likely, because the way it looks, he wasn't going to listen. And they could have been a grappling, a fight, and they could have cuffed him up. But they didn't. They let him walk all the way. There was one officer, that obviously the shooting officer, that followed him all the way. The guy got to open his door. He got to go into his truck. The other officers were kind of like, they weren't doing anything, right? They weren't going, hey, dude, no, come back here. And once you are detaining someone and it's legal and they try to walk away, technically escape the situation or something, you have a right to cuff them up, to take them into custody.
Yeah.
But the officers did not. Why not? Why didn't they interact with him?
Yeah. That's a very good question.
That's a whole different, I think that police officers right now don't want to go hands-on because it's too much hassle. You know, you go hands-on, they investigate. Some DA that's a progressive DA, he files charges on you. You lose your job. You go to prison. You lose your everything. That's not worth it. So they just go, yeah, go to your truck, whatever. I'm not gonna, you know.
Yeah.
So the morale question that you had, morale sucks. It sucks. Just, you know, when you think that it couldn't get worse for police officers are the reason for everything bad in the country. You know, ACAB, F-12, how much can one person take? Yet, in support of the police officers, the protesters and the rioters and the looters and all this violence is out there, and the police officers show up every day. And so, but on the other hand, their departments aren't backing them. The lawmakers are coming up with legislation to just tear down the fabric of the morale of the police officers, and it's working.
Yeah.
Because the whole goal is to abolish the police.
Defund the police.
Well, there's talk that what they really want is to abolish the police. Defunding is just a nice word, but BLM in the People's Budget LA, the defunding, they want 90% defunding, which is effectively abolishing the police.
Yeah, that to me seems outrageous, to defund the police. In my opinion, I think that there needs to be, as a civilian speaking, I think that there's a budget that needs to be dedicated towards more training, like an increase in funding for this specific types of de-escalation training? Because God damn, man, I see a lot of videos of police officers using like crazy force against civilians. And then my mindset is like, okay, what are these people doing that's making these police officers, use lethal force? It's a very, I mean, you would know more than anybody. Like, what is the mindset as a police officer when it comes to, for one, making a routine stop? Because I'm sure you guys have seen, I've seen routine stops turn violent, deadly, lethal against a police officer. So what is the mindset think? What is the thinking going into something simple as like a routine traffic stop? Do you think this person you have to go in there? I would assume like this person could possibly have a gun. Is that more or less correct?
Well, you hear a lot of times routine traffic stop, and if you ask a police officer that, they'll tell you there's no such thing as a routine traffic stop, because a lot of things go to crap on traffic stops. That's where a ton of stuff, guns are found, felons are found, stolen cars are found, people with felony warrants are found on these traffic stops. There's always a danger in any kind of stop that you don't know the person that you're stopping. So it's always been with police work, whenever you approach a car, there's always a sense of caution. Some police officers, depending, whatever their mindset is, sometimes they'll walk up to the car and they'll have their gun, their hand kind of resting on their gun. Because if they, there's something that's not recognized in society, and it's okay, but it's that police officer's sixth sense. If you do something over and over and over again, you kind of get spidey senses about it, and you kind of know the feeling, something's not right here. And police officers do that. You can't use it in court. I had a feeling that this was something based on my experience. They can't use it in court, but so police officers can go on a traffic stop and they can kind of see someone's looking in their side mirror at the officer. Most people, if you're going, oh dang it, I'm getting stopped by the cops, but if someone's looking at you and they're looking, and then you see them as you're stopping them, instead of going, blinker on, pull over, and they start looking down, toward the seats as you're pulling them over, or as you're pulling up, they're looking at you, they're moving their hands around. Those are things that you kind of go, okay, hold on. And you go into another gear.
Yeah.
So, routine and like I say, routine traffic stops turn to crap all the time.
Yeah. What is the best thing in your opinion? Like, what would make you feel most comfortable, or what made you feel most comfortable as a police officer when it comes to a traffic stop like that? Is it to have your hands on the wheel? What is it?
Just put your hands on the steering wheel. And don't you can be nervous, but don't do things that, a lot of people, where they get into trouble, they go, what'd you stop me for? I didn't do anything. And they're doing all this stuff. And a lot of stuff with regard to ex-felons, ex-convicts, it's this distraction game. You're trying to take the officer's focus off of what they're doing. And until everybody's calm and the officer tells you what they stopped you for, just kind of relax and just put your hand. There's no reason to be doing anything. The officers most of the time just want to have a conversation.
Yeah.
If an officer lights you up, let me put a scenario, and criminals know this. If you see an officer behind you and you go a mile and 2 miles and the officer's still following you, but they haven't done anything, then they're probably getting backup.
I see.
And the crooks know this. But if an officer just pulls you over, there's no reason to get excited. Can you just wait and see? They're not going to stop anybody and say, okay, well, the reason I stopped you is because your race. There's no reason to get all excited. Wait until the officer tells you. And if you did something legit wrong, then just go, oh, dude, I didn't, whatever. And just have a conversation. The LAPD LEPD's manual, and I don't know for a fact that this is the same, but LEPD's traffic manual, or the as far as traffic stops go, it said that if a warning does the same thing as a citation, you can warn them. It doesn't have to be a ticket. They're just trying to go, hey man, you just kind of made a rolling stop sign. Okay, all right, cool. Don't do it again. Bye.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Why make more of it than it is?
Right. Yeah. I think with the racial thing, and this is controversial for sure. And I'm sure, do you get as a police officer, do you guys get like flack, all the time? Do like people think you're automatically racist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're
if you
racist for
stop,
being a cop.
mostly in the black community,
Yeah.
if you stop someone, you're stopping them because they're black, and you don't know me. Why would you say that?
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it, I think, has to do with the media's portrayal of, of what's going on. And of course, like anecdotal evidence of Black people, their encounters with cops. I saw a statistic that, and this is probably just more by population, but white people are killed more by cops than Black people. Is that something that you understand? And that has to do with simply just like by population, there's more white people than Black people in the United States. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So one thing that was that I was looking for, because there's so much interactions with Black people and cops using lethal force against, I was trying to find videos on white people like being using lethal force, and I found some, but I didn't find a lot. When you were in the police force in LAPD, did you have a specific location that you were assigned to in LA? Because it's a big city. Say for example, like in Compton, where you say, for example, like in, I don't know, San Pedro. I don't know. What was the kind of the area that you patrolled, or was it all of LA?
Well, I spent my probation in Newton Division, which is south of downtown and north of 77th Division, so north of Watts. And that area was predominantly at the time Hispanic and Black. The nickname, they can't use it anymore because of political correctness, was Shootin' Newton, because that division was known for murders and shootings. So they called it Shootin' Newton, The other time in patrol I spent in Wilshire Division. Wilshire is really diverse because it goes all the way from the border of Beverly Hills down to Southwest Division, and Koreatown, where and the areas that border Southwest Division and Rampart and all the areas. So it was really a cool division because it was a large division, and you could have it was like 4 or 5 little divisions in one. And so there were drugs, there were gangs, there were shootings, murders, the whole 9 yards. And so I encountered all kinds of people.
Yeah. Okay. I would think, just logically speaking, if you're, in that type of division, like, did you feel that there was some type of bias towards specifically Black people, or was it kind of just like, it doesn't matter what race they are? If you're reaching inside or you're doing something fishy, like, you're probably going to get, some lethal force against you.
Well, it's not necessarily lethal force. That could go in any direction. Because lethal force, the narrative is that, police shootings, but I mean, the overwhelming percentage of police interactions with people are not force at all.
Correct.
And so the big deal is when lethal force does happen, police officers rarely, let me put it this way, police officers never start an encounter thinking about lethal force. the interaction with suspects leads that to happen. Now, have police officers made, you know, horrible errors and people were killed? Yes. Mistakes have obviously been made. Are the people who get killed targeted because they're black? No. People, this thing that police officers are hunting. I had somebody tell me, yeah, police officers hunt and murder black men. Like, what?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. As as a person, um, that just as a human being, that doesn't make any sense to me, like, at all. And I think it's so crazy right now that the police are getting like a lot of negative publicity, when the job is a really, like, one of the most respectable jobs out there. So I guess maybe a question, in that case, when an officer does make a mistake like that, what is the reaction from other police officers?
Oh, you know, in the there's whenever there's a video that surfaces on police tactics, it surfaces in different groups, like police groups on social media. And by and large, if you see something on a video, and it's difficult, I know, because you look at a video and first glance without seeing all the evidence and the investigation is not done. But police officers, when they see a video, they will not hesitate to go, "Oh, that's not going to end well."
Yeah,
You know,
shouldn't
they
have
we
done
kind of
that.
go, "Yeah, geez," you know, and they just kind of wince. And if there's something that totally sucks, the threads on these videos will go on for miles and miles of the cops just berating, you know, somebody doing something totally either stupid or just poor tactics that
Mhm.
led to something else.
Yeah.
Like, to me, tactics. Let me give an example of I I don't want to this I don't want this recent shooting in Kenosha. I don't want to focus so much on that, only because the investigation is not done, and I keep hearing different things from different sides and things like that. But in my opinion, had it been me and I took the guy into custody and people caught me on tape and he's fighting and you're trying to do whatever you're trying to do to get him into custody, and that the rule for use of force is you're supposed to use that force that's just above what the suspect's force is in order to get them to comply to get into custody. And if you're on video and they show you pummeling him because the fight's on, and most people can't fight for maybe a couple minutes if you're in a righteous fight, and the guy's not getting into custody and you're trying to take him into custody, I'd rather be on video looking like I was pummeling him than to be in jail because I shot him.
Right.
You know, so that's one thing where police officers are, you know, if it looks like somebody screwed up, they just wince and go, ah, man.
Yeah, which I think is an important thing that you share that, because I think a lot of um, people think that if a police officer makes a mistake, that other police officers is like, you know what, we're just going to stand, let's say, for example, like, back the blue no matter what. So what you're saying is, if a police officer does make a mistake, in the case, say, for example, like, of George Floyd, like, what are your thoughts on what should happen to Derek Chauvin? Like, what legal actions should happen to him, if at all? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't believe that the charges that they filed on him are going to stick. They're probably going to convict him of something less. But in order to get like a murder, a homicide conviction, you have to have some kind of intent that you wanted to kill the guy. If they're trying to say they killed him because he's black and he had the intent to murder the guy, that's probably not what happened. I wasn't there. I don't know. I'm not in Derek Chauvin's mind, but he's definitely going to get convicted of something. He's not going to be a cop. He's probably going to end up in prison for something. But if somebody is telling you they can't breathe and you're looking right at the guy videotaping you, that's stupid. That's
Yeah.
stupid. Because even the perception that your knee is on the guy's back and he's yelling, he can't breathe, and someone's videotaping you, that combination would lead me to believe, hey, okay, so let's get my knee off his neck. And if somebody tells you he can't breathe, I believe him.
Yeah.
And if he's on the ground handcuffed and he's not flailing around, there's ways to control people who are, their legs are kicking up, yeah, I don't think that's going to turn out for him well at all. And I don't know any police officer, and I talk to many, many police officers on a daily basis. I don't know anyone that says, yeah, back the blue. There, justice for dare, no, there's not a police officer that doesn't think that was a totally stupid move on his part.
Yeah, I think that's important that is shared, because it's a very us versus them mentality right now. Say for example, police versus Black Lives Matter. Man, it's crazy. And then, just objectively speaking, there was a video that you had on your Instagram about, the Kenosha riots, and then this cop getting hit in the head and then just dropping. And I've left a comment on that. Man, it's like where's the outrage for that? Like, where's the outrage for that? It seems unfair that would not receive a bunch of media attention. Like, hey, come on, like, these police officers, I think that they are trying to do their best. And like you said, some of them make mistakes and they should have repercussions for those mistakes. But definitely things seem to be very, very biased, heavily favored towards people who, and then it also encourages, like you said, to this resistance. Like, let me just walk away from a cop, or let me just like say, hey, you can't do this, or you can't do that. What do you think is the solution to all this, Ken? Like, what can be done?
Well, that's difficult. I mean, I started in police work in 1980, and back then it was pigs, and there was it wasn't. I mean, there was an anti-police thing, but it was the police brutality and all of that, and so it's been going on since who knows when. And so the thing is, where you talk about the us versus them, how does that happen? So what happens is you take a group and you start picking on them, and then they have to circle the wagons, and then the attacks keep coming and coming. And so then you develop this mindset of, oh, okay, so it's these people against us, and we have to shore up our defenses, and we need to come to the defense of those people. And that's when it starts getting to be this mentality of us versus them, and there's no community involved, because the attacks don't stop. It's as simple as people, it's as simple as people saying ACAB, F12, and all this. Why ACAB? How can all cops be bastards? All cops are bastards. There's no room in there.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense at all.
No, it's completely stupid, and it's juvenile.
Yeah.
And so, somebody, there was a post that somebody did in, they showed it on Instagram, and it's a guy that he put his name out there. He's all up front about it. And he works in the movie industry on set locations. I don't know what he does, but he says, I work with cops. They work off duty. They hang around me. They're motor cops. They direct traffic and stuff, but I don't care. They shouldn't be here. They should defund the police, F the police, and all this. And this guy's in the movie industry, and he works alongside cops, but F all cops. And so when you hear that over and over again, then people are throwing bricks at your head, at your buddies, and they're throwing stuff, and then the people around you are cheering.
Yeah, that was disturbing for sure. Very disturbing.
That's not building community.
Yeah. Community. It's interesting that you say community. I think definitely I've heard some talks about like building community between cops and the citizens that are within their community, within their city. I think that's a great idea. I think that, God, man, I think that is a really good idea, to build that community between police officers, cops, and the citizens around them. In my town, I live in Los Angeles, Alhambra, California. There's some outreach by cops to have those conversations, like at different Chamber of Commerce meetings and things like that. They'll like show up and say, hey, like we're doing this like a community event where like citizens can come like meet the police officers and interact with them and know them by name and things like that. It would seem a little bit hard to do that in a larger city like Los Angeles because it's just so big. But I think that's a very important thing that you've shared. And I want to thank you for your time, Ken. This was a cool conversation. You have a podcast, Things Police See. You guys do a live show every Saturday?
Every Saturday on Facebook at the Things Police See Facebook page. People can log in. I mean, they can go in there and they can listen to us live. And it's pretty hardcore thin blue line. We share police stories around, and whether they're good or bad. If a police officer does something bad, then we share it.
Yeah. I think that's important to just be as unbiased and objective as possible, like call out bad policing when you see it, but then also to like recognize like the good work that cops are doing in their communities, because it is very heavily swayed the other way. Yeah. Cool, Ken. Thank you so much for doing this. I'll put like the links in the description to your Instagram and anything else that you have besides the podcast and your Instagram that you'd like to promote or.
One thing that I do is that I've been a background investigator for police backgrounds since 1997. I have a company called policebackground.net. And if anybody wants to join the police department and wants to know if they're going to pass a background, then that's what I do. I review and do consultations on folks that still want to be police officers.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome, Ken. Well, thank you so much. The podcast should be up, I would say, probably in about a week or so. So
all right.
Looking forward
Thank
to this.
you so much.
Cool. All right, Ken. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, brother.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hey, what's up? I'm Marty Yang, creator of the Lucky Brain podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoy.